Okay, I'm live. It lied to me. Now it should be on. I should wait until it says I'm live to work with that. But you live, you learn, then you get loves. Or drugs. Ever wonder about that? Why loves and drugs sound so similar? I don't. I totally don't. It said I'm live. These first few minutes are always a pain, 'cause I don't know what to say, 'cause I wait until I can confirm I'm streaming before I do anything. Okay, stream's definitely still behind me. Maybe I'm on the wrong stream. It's gonna be a pain to cut. Okay, finally. Finally it decides to give me something. Alright, beautiful. Let's get this party started. Okay, first, I'm gonna do this. Try to get through Father E's Fall 3 is worse than you know. Full screen.
So welcome to Growing Up Fast, the first area and mini quest of Fallout 3. Technically it's the second as you do get to play as a baby, but that's literally just character build and thus its equivalent in Fallout 1 was a menu, let's admit.
Remember, this is why it's worse than you know, because Martin is the one doing it.
It's that.
Most players do omit that. H-Bomb pointed out.
Automatically going into sighting of the H-bomb. Something I probably should have regretted not covering in my video, but it would have added to time, and there's really not much to mention on his video, but he's gonna cite it anyway, so thank you for that.
In his video that the most popular mod for Fallout 3 is one.
Yes, when you're going with popularity ballast, this is a stupid way to start off. Okay, H-Bomber guy didn't even do this, but Father E obviously thinks just citing more popular sources is the way to go when you're starting with this ultimate argument, and he just derails. This is why I think this guy's a troll or joke. I'm gonna treat it like it's real. Treat him like he's as, I wouldn't say stupid, but it's definitely something not good.
One that lets you mod the beginning out. Of course, opinions are subjective, but it does.
Exactly. Opinions are subjective, not objective, and this is objectively cringe.
Seem that the majority of players do not like the beginning of Fallout 3. Come to think of it, a lot of players do not like the ending either. It is only what comes between the opening and ending that has opinions divided as to whether that
That's horrible framing. He basically insinuated both the ending and the beginning no one likes. That is not true at all, but go on. What's wrong with the middle? Like growing up in the vault.
content is good or not. And those who do say it is good are people who tend to go around and do the side content and ignore the main quest for as long as possible. But starting the game...
How would you know that? Have you actually enjoyed anything in your life ever? I know. You get your rocks hard on something. Everyone does. Do you get your rocks hard on shitting on people who get triggered too easily? You should be happy with me then. But it's just when my brain feels like nothing is going on, I'm just hearing echoes and demons wailing. That tends to get my goat.
From the moment of literal birth was completely unnecessary. Later on in the...
It's what they chose to do. From birth, they thought it would be cool. I thought it was cool. Most people thought it was cool. State why it was not an interesting concept. Because it deviated from the original Fallout. I'm sure I watched this before. I don't know how this goes.
The video, you talk about showing and not telling. Well, showing your character as an infant is something that doesn't need to be either told or shown. As H-Bomb said in...
Why? Again, you're just asserting all this. This is why I think it's a joke. It's so simplistic.
His video, it is the bad joke answer to the question, where does our story begin?
It's a bad joke answer. Well, H-Bomber guy, obviously. And you know how honest he is. He'll go for the insult and joke whenever he can. It was an interesting mechanic, because some people, obviously not the older Fallout fans, wanted to experience the vault life, what it's like. It was an interesting idea. It wasn't for everyone, I will agree, but to insult it, as I can't really figure out how you go about saying this is a bad thing, or why this is the bad answer to where our story begins. Yes, it is a right turn, the most exciting point in the character's life. This is a tutorial level, and sometimes it's good to subvert things. Not usually, and this isn't really a subversion. This is just an interesting way to start out.
Thank God New Vegas doesn't do that with the courier.
Oh.
The only thing predefined about the courier is that he or she is a courier.
Okay, I give up now. It's just gonna go blow up. Go just like, instead of actually critiquing the thing you're supposed to be critiquing. Okay.
Intro in Fallout 3 is that it leaves nothing to the imagination. In New Vegas, your character is an unwritten book, aside from being...
Yep, no blank slate. More stuff about that.
Like Ulysses. Perhaps they were a scavenger like Easy Pete, or a farmer. Who knows? You can imagine them being pretty much...
Okay. Can't say anything about the Lone Wanderer not being the Lone Wanderer. Book is already written.
But you can't say the same about the Lone Wanderer. Not only is the Lone Wanderer's book already written, but it's a fucking baby book.
I mean, as bad as that is of a criticism, it's sort of a really good jab. It's fucking inaccurate as all hell, Baby book is where we all start.
Is Bethesda did not omit that. As much as most players want to skip past it, it is still in the game regardless, and it railroads your character to being nothing more and nothing less than James' son or daughter.
I mean, there's nothing really to criticize here except for the stupidity of it. Then they go into Fallout 4, learn nothing of their mistakes. Fallout 4 actually tried to do a break-even point where they kept the backstory vague enough that people could fill it in, and not vague enough for some people because they are still a soldier lawyer. Although you could ignore that because they don't really make that explicit. It's something you have to read into, but that's their professions. They try to split it down, but most people agree Fallout 3's intro was much better because you actually got emotional investment out of the characters you met. Your father, Amada, your best friend, Butch the bully. You had emotional investment as long as you freaking chose to have that emotional investment. If you put yourself in the baby's shoes, the kid's shoes, you could definitely get something out of it, and it had blank slates. Let's just say, for instance, a childhood, there's really not much. Your favorite candy was rock candy your dad made to show you science, or maybe you were a rapscallion who snuck out of your room to do stuff with Amada, maybe some dirty stuff, maybe just some stupid stuff. And when you get to the Go to Zam, the sort of encounter with Butch will tell you how you've been dealing with it. Butch is a jackass. You're not in the group. Maybe you decide to join him. Maybe you decide to take the stand. Maybe you decide just to be dismissive and be like getaway jerk and talk him down. It's not the perfect way to build a blank slate character, but you're stuck in a vault anyways. And I think this is a waste. Thought it was a waste.
But another thing about this baby sequence.
I have a script. Literally 30 minutes. The criticism does not come in until this point. Then it's almost a red herring talking about Matt In not taking. This is more about Matt In and all the other critics and Oxhorn being a homophobe, whatever. I don't care. Okay, I can't substantiate that claims. Of course, you're going to make the claims. Just don't care. Maybe I should, but I don't watch any of these people enough. When I'm done, I probably won't watch them. I can't get this on the transcript, so let's just do this. Cover him.
Fallout 3 begins with your character's birth. The vaginal slit dilate. That's not what it's called. Hold on a second. The cervix dilates, and there we are. The next hour or so is
so many unnecessary little inserts. I get it, because of the birth. No, I have no clue.
Spent making the character, picking their stats, and learning the dialogue and VAT systems. Ironically, being handholded and treated like a baby with no consequence for our actions.
Absolutely. You are a fucking baby. Get used to it. You're going to keep on whining about this shit. And you're not going to have the freaking intelligence to back it up with any real criticism. Just, this doesn't make sense. They treat you like a baby. It's fine to be treated like a baby in a game. You don't like your agency taken away. I think I mentioned daddy issues, maybe just authority issues, which definitely would fit him. After all, H-Bomber guy. He's gonna, that's his YouTube name, surely.
Even when
he's gonna be a perfectly well-adjusted adult who just shits on shit like a bomb.
Character has turned 18. Let's think about this for a second. The protagonist...
Actually, he sort of calmed down. His last video game review is, what was it? Deus Ex was fine. It was a bland video with bland points, talking about bland things as far as I'm concerned. Just, he's lost his edge. He can't criticize. Or maybe that was a duck, so people like me would go out, but that's fine as well. Probably a waste of space now that I'm much older and wiser. I mean, I think I might have agreed with some of his points. I even still agree with some of his points in this video, but overall, it's very deceptive. I'm sure the Deus Ex is fine, is just a way to both praise and insult things equally. Equality, that's our man, H. Bomber Guy.
Its literal birth is the bad joke answer to the question, where should our story start?
Okay. Why is it the bad joke? It's a video game. It's supposed to be a role-playing game. This isn't an action sequence where they start with the most epic battles, then how did I get here? And rewind. That is the bad joke answer to where should I story starts. This is way down the line, as so over the line, it's sort of funny. Where should our story start? Birth? That's just crazy. Well, how would we do that? Just show him. Just sort of do a little thing, a tutorial level where people pick their stats, learn different skills slowly and build that up so they learn the game, and you get to learn a little bit about how life in the vault. Wouldn't that be cool? We've never done that. Fallout's never done that. They just kick you out at the... Fallout 1 is the only one that had them at the gate, and they just kicked it out. By the way, all the side stories, they don't exist in my headcanon. 1 and 2 barely exist, but I know virtually nothing about Brotherhood of Steel and Brotherhood of Steel Tactics. I'm probably not even getting that right. So, let's continue. Where I don't find this as a criticism, this is just an interesting play on words. This is a good way to insult. Because, yes, as a writer, where should the story start? So you always want to start at the most pinnacle point of time. And in some ways, this is the most pinnacle point in time. The mother dying probably actually had a certain outcome on how this child was raised, but there might be Steelman, but any further would be just like freaking God-manning. Is that even a term? God-manning? A straw-manning? Or steel-manning, technically. I've heard the term jelly-manning, but God-manning would be like the ultra version of steel-manning, I would guess. Like God tier, nothing affects it. Not in reality, that must be what they use with, that's what Last Jedi, the Last Jedi defenders must be using God-manning of the Last Jedi, because otherwise that is a rather objectively bad movie overall.
The other problem with this opening is it's fucking boring! The stat picking process takes...
Okay. It's boring. Such a poignant criticism. Even if people did. I'm not saying all people even found it boring. Even if they found it boring, or should I say, if they found it slow, slow and steady wins the race sometimes. Okay, point is, boring is not a criticism. It's a subjective viewpoint, and Harris tends to, in this video, to project his own projective viewpoints onto the whole review and what he thinks the majority of the audience should feel about this. The air of authority will give him blah 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 blah.
Ages and corresponds to long scenes of your character growing up and nothing major happening and meaningless hijinks as you learn how to...
Because you need action all the time. Michael Bay, explosions. Fuck yeah.
To control a first-person video game. You press the WASD keys to move and use the mouse to... Are you ready to learn you need to click the mouse to shoot yet? Sorry, push mouse 1? I don't know, maybe we should fuck around...
Oh, let's just make fun of growing up. My childhood sucks, so I don't want to live it again. And I don't want to live it in a vault. Even though it doesn't take that long in reality. Fucking hell. You can't skip it. You're only really forced to do it one time unless you fuck up and don't save at the exit of the vault. Then you have to buy a whole mod, and frankly, options are always better. If mod can do something simple like skip it, you don't have to accept it. Yada yada yada. Onward.
Around at a birthday party some more. I genuinely want to know whose idea the opening of the game was. Give me their name. The first Bethesda employee to tell me who came up with the opening sequence.
Okay, why is this bad? Please tell me. Why is this scene bad? No, it's just bad, and I want to beat whoever the hell came up with this idea up. So mature, H-Bomber guy.
Sequence set in an enclosed space you have zero control over in their action RPG about having freedom and making meaning.
See, this is where I made a mistake. I had this in mind when I started my criticism, and it's sort of out of context in the actual video. But that's fine. It is what it is.
Meaningful choices gets to live. But eventually the game properly starts and you can finally start acting of your own volition. Your friend gives you a gun and disappears down the hallway. And no, that's not a description of how quickly she moves. She's literally gone. You grab your stuff and go to follow her.
There he is. Hold it right there.
And it was here, in the first proper room of the game, that I knew Fallout 3 was going to be a problem. This is Officer Kendall.
No, you did not know it was a problem. How did you know it was a problem right there? Please tell me. Hold it right there. There he is. Hold it right there. I should let him continue. But hold it right there.
He and all the other cops in the vault beside one attack you on sight as soon as they see you. Remember how I just said you can finally act of your own volition? That was a lie. You can't initiate dialogue at all.
Sorry, dialogue is not acted of your own volition. I mean, I'm sure you being a YouTuber, you're used to just talking at people and not be able to do anything about that. That's because you're a privileged fuck, okay? Some people are just going to press mute, pause it and tell you to fuck off at this point, downvote and exit out. No, people don't have to talk to you. You can try to talk to him. Doesn't necessarily mean he has to talk to you. Okay. Talk to him all you want. The dialogue tree won't pop up because he won't listen.
Roaches that attack him rarely kill him for you, and once he kills them, he goes hostile on you. If you try to run away, he'll chase you. He'll chase you through the entire vault. He is dedicated to putting his...
What does he think is the point of this? Why? Yes, obvious. Okay. Okay. Should let him get to his point.
Fingers in your eyes. No, wait, you can't target those anymore. Your head, then. Whatever. You can talk to Butch, the fucker
You can, okay.
who's been bullying you your entire life. In fact, you have no choice not to. He will chase you down to tell you about his mother.
You gotta help.
Oh, he will chase you down. That's fine. Fuck off. I don't care about your mom. You're an asshole. Or, I'm such a good person while I'm being chased, I will help you.
Me.
But you can't speak to this guy who's been a law-abiding citizen and a nice guy vault cop who attended your birthday party. Butch, fuck.
Who's saying he attended your birthday party? So what?
Fucking Butch is allowed.
This is just boggles the brain. When you critically look at this first part, I don't see how this is a criticism. He just doesn't think the security guard who was told by his overseer to catch you, and he decided to take that a little bit to, police brutality levels. You might have been alive after the beating he was going to give you. He might have not. Who knows?
To have depth and be treated with a range of options. You can help him save his mother, leave her to her fate, or murder him in the head. This is the closest the game comes to a series of choices, but the game...
Sure, this is the closest you get. Expand on that, please. I wonder if he does. I'm not going to watch this whole thing tonight, so I guess you'll never find out.
The game literally forces you to encounter that choice, and meanwhile you don't even get one whatsoever when it comes to Officer Mac. Is this what Fallout is supposed...
Okay. Give me a moment. No one's watching. I'm not gonna cry or anything, but this is still just... I am waiting for criticism. I know I'm not going to get one. This is why I decided to skip this. This is just a win-lose situation. I can't argue with him. Everything he's saying correct, but it doesn't actually matter. He wants freedom right from the start. When you've never been in this scenario, you shouldn't know. You expect the unexpected, H-Bomber guy. Don't be scared of new things. They're trying a new thing. You get some freedom later. They'll take it away at other points. Well, they won't really take it away. You'll still have a choice to start it, but at some points you'll be stuck having to listen to people. I know as a YouTuber you would rather be able to just talk your way out of everything, but reality doesn't work like that. But I'll hear him out, see if he says anything really stupid.
Supposed to be a hallway with enemies to shoot? That sounds fine for your bog standard action game, but isn't this supposed to be about having the freedom to choose what sort of person you are?
Yes, you're choosing to leave the vault or die here, okay? That is a choice. You can die and quit the game. In fact, you probably would have been better off in less stress if you just died and said, fuck the game, okay? I would be here, you wouldn't be here, no one would be here. Well, everyone would be here, except for your character, who wasn't really real in the first place.
Because now, no matter what sort of person I turn out to be, I've already shot a man's fucking head off his body.
You didn't need to shoot him? What makes you think you have to shoot him?
Officer Kendall isn't the victim of the Lone Wanderer. He's a victim of bad writing. Compare and contrast.
He's a victim of bad narrative. Your narrative. He's not a real person. Okay. This is sort of probably why Father Yi sort of went on about you can't do a pacifist run. You can run past him, but you have to kill that one rad roach in the training, so you can't do a true pacifism run. I mean, none of this is incorrect, but and here's the comparison.
Contrast with your first meeting with a hostile human in, say, Fallout 2. To continue in your quest, you must defeat me in unarmed combat. Why do we have to fight? The path of the Chosen One is not an easy trail to walk, H-Bomb. This challenge prepares you to face another human, look him in the eyes, and know that you may have to kill him. I disagree with you. I think that a peaceful solution to any problem is possible.
Did that solution actually work, or you just demonstrate you could talk to someone who was just there to train you? This security guard has a rather dickish boss, and obviously he's just follow my boss's order. You have not established that he wouldn't do this, that he would want to talk to you and not just beat you senseless or kill you even. You are spoiler, you are like the outsider's child. There's even a hint of it in the birthday scene if you talk to the one old lady. I remember when your father came in. These guys, and your father just broke out. These guys are probably itching to get some action. Imagine being in this vault and they probably just beat on their wives just to get that freaking urge to get some action in this small little environment.
Yes, you and shit, police officer I literally couldn't even attempt a conversation with. Say hi to your family at your crappy state funeral I had no choice not to cause. Oh, and it'll be closed casket because this is how firearms work. Officer Park is intestines now.
A lot of games make a big deal out of player choice, but few in recent memory offer so many intricate ways of approaching any given situation.
There are so many options. Gun. Bat. Oh, knife! Having a conversation with the human beings in front of you with thoughts and dreams and...
Declinism. This is what this argument is. The game is declining because they put a section where you're forced to run out of the vault. Let's say you could talk him down and you could stay in the vault. It's game over from there. I have no clue. No words to explain. I mean, yeah, technically correct. But the way he's framing it, you can run the fuck away from them and not kill them. So stupid, I'm doing sing-song, and my voice isn't really for this.
It is freedom that makes Fallout 3 worth playing and replaying.
So he started this narrative that the game does not give you freedom right from the start. Okay, I got it. It's horribly deceptive framing right from the start. You can talk down the end boss. That is correct. And you get pissed at the people you can talk. But there are some people who won't want to talk. Should you have a button dedicated to shouting and they will just keep coming out? Maybe this is why they had to shout in Skyrim, you know. You feel like an enemy should listen to you, so you just do a shout as an attack. That would have worked in this, I guess.
Okay.
Hello, darkness, my old friend. I've come to talk with you again.
If you aren't Butch, this one guard, or the Overseer, your only meaningful choice is picking which weapon you mash them to death with. They're treated like the radroaches. Like I said, the problem with Fallout 3 isn't any one issue. Having a long sequence where you play as a baby and pick your stats from little books is fine, but it's this in tandem with the several other long sequences, the being told how to click a mouse, the escape sequence where most players unavoidably kill.
Yeah, you hate new players, don't you? Okay. You really just hate new players. You hate actual narrative drive in a Fallout game. Okay, get to the point where you actually criticize the actual story. I think it's in here. I could be thinking of a different video. It could be Credios.
Killed a bunch of cops because they weren't given any other choices in this game about having freedom of choice. The character build is garbage too. They took out all the nuance from it. They took out the trait system because traits are scary. For those of you who don't know, traits in the first...
Oh, they didn't have a feature they had in the first one because maybe it didn't fit with their game image. Maybe they wanted to go for a different thing. Maybe they just couldn't include it. That would definitely be so bad on the developers, but maybe they thought it was useless. Maybe they didn't. I don't know. I don't care. Okay? Hard to miss what you don't have. And how does it affect the gameplay? I don't know. Trait system was in Fallout New Vegas. Sometimes I used it for advantage. Sometimes I used it for disadvantage. It definitely makes replayability a little bit more interesting, but besides that, no, it's not a critical flaw. And you're just lumping it in with all these other little things. Sorry, I just don't see it.
Two games are special choices with positive and negative downsides, which you can start the game with that radically alter the game, like Jinx, which increases the amount of critical failures everyone, including you, can get, making the game a hilarious mess of constant suffering. It's how I make almost every character nowadays, and it
That does not fucking surprise me. You like everyone suffering. And you put your luck up as high as possible so it's less likely to happen to you. Didn't think I would catch that, would I? You like it when you have the advantage? When everyone's at a disadvantage, you would rather have the luck advantage. Makes good sense. You love the suffering of others. This is why you made this video. You didn't think it would take off, I guess. But we all suffered for it, especially the Fallout fandom. The fight between the Bethesda Lights and the Obsidians supposedly took so many lives, caused so much harassment, yada yada yada.
adds yet another layer of possibilities to the proceedings, as enemies and allies blow the weapons out of their hands and your dog does such a bad job of biting someone that his leg spontaneously breaks. But who'd want...
Okay. Let me pause this for a minute. How does a misbite break a leg? That's like supernatural level of unluck. Did he bite his own foot? Did he trip? That's why he went for the bite and tripped and broke his own leg. That makes absolutely no sense. But continue.
Want to risk having funny things happen at random, or cool risk-reward builds for characters who want to specialise in certain types of skills. That sounds too fun, and like it would add...
I put out a theory, rosy retrospective versus declinism, and this definitely sounds... This new game isn't as great as your memories of the old one. So it can't be great, because it's not the same as the old one. That's how I am seeing this. You get it? I mean, if there was actual some criticism of why you're just saying you enjoyed all this crazy weird hijinks of this one, fine. Go back and play that one. You don't have to buy this game. You don't have to play it. You're not getting anything. You just want the same game done in 3D, I'm guessing. Okay, they didn't want to do it. They did that. They tried to do that for New Vegas, and you loved it. Yay, you for New Vegas. But Fallout 3 tried something different. And then they went back to boring with Fallout 4 and fucked it up even more. So yay you guys for criticizing them so hard for 3 that they thought they had to take a halfway measure and make something as wide as an ocean but deep as a puddle, as Rags put it.
Too much variety. That would run the risk of making the vault escape sequence even a little different every time you do it.
I mean, not even Matt N could really defend Fallout 4 actual game. His Fallout 4 is better than you think. It started with all the cool builds and this and this. He did not touch on the story, the questing, or anything. He's like, oh shit, I'm gonna have to make another one. One that's completely criticizing the game, because I put out all the good points, but there's too many bad ones for me to ignore this time around. He could do that for Fallout 3. He could justify that in his head, but for 4, he could not. He could just dampen the bad points in the second video. It's truly hilarious attempt by him realizing that all these criticisms he put in his last video, I mean, yeah, some people probably say it's a little scummy. He started the video off with all the good points of Fallout 4 and put all his bad points severely hampered. This is why throwing out hardcore criticism, obviously that's why he led with the good points of Fallout 3. You just started with, what was it, 3 or 4 points that you liked, then everything else is shit. That's not bad framing at all. And constantly comparing to a game it's clearly not. It's just done in its image. Bad fanfic? No. Just more like a different approach to the Fallout, because Bethesda wanted to do a more local, wanted to envision how the East Coast and West Coast would differ, and the tone that they set is definitely different. It was more restrictive. Yes, from the start, it's restrictive. Okay, not total and utter freedom. A lot more freedom than most games that consoles could run would give you, but not as good as a lot of the PC games that claim to give you freedom, because in reality, all this is code. It's an illusion of freedom. The question is, what gives you a better illusion of freedom? Something that can run more programs, which would have been the PCs, opposed to the consoles who, what was this, PS2 era? I'll think about why I listen.
And it's this freedom that makes Fallout 3 worth playing.
See, he really likes to harp on the freedom and trying to say, Fallout 3 doesn't give freedom. No freedom at all, I guess.
And replaying.
Worth playing and replaying it.
So little freedom that it's designed to take away your choices, as he'll bring up. Let's but I already brought that up in my video.
Hey Kevin, I wonder if players agree with you. No wait! They modded the opening out! That's right, even players who loved Fallout 3 enough to learn how to make mods for it think this opening is a heaping pile of garbage trash.
Okay, I'm reading anything. Does it say anything on this? Please, evidence. I mean, people who love this game so much, you can only experience that beginning part so many times. And if you just want to do a build and go from instead of load up a save point, makes sense. It's probably an easy fix to do. Skip through the opening. Probably a better experience for some people who want to imagine no backstory at all. There's a lot of good reasons to edit out that opening, but there's a lot of good reasons for keeping it too, especially for new players.
When the game's biggest fans are editing the content out of a game,
This is not an argument. This is faulty logic.
content is probably bad. Maybe it's wrong of me to harp on the opening so much, because even at its worst, it's an hour of boring, repetitive stuff of no consequence, and then you're done with it. But it's not that simple, is it? The sort of people who thought this was an acceptable way to open their game about freedom and choice made the rest of the game too.
And people thought this video was good a long time ago. People still think this has a lot of good arguments. This is why I came after you, H-Bomber guy. People still cite you as a source of inspiration. There's a plenty of good reasons not to like Fallout 3. And it's not the beginning. Some people will like it, some people won't. Simple as that. That's why it's not worth defending, but your criticism non void. Completely subjective, just as most of this video is faulty argumentation.
Whoever it was whose fault is the opening, you can see their grubby little piss-stained hands all over the entire...
Please expand. You keep making claims throughout this whole video. Sometimes you back them up. Mostly you don't. You just want to insinuate and leave it hanging in the background like a menacing shadow. And just move forward with your points. Treat your points as if they're the truth and just move on. No, you need to substantiate. You don't bring up points, then just move on. People, common tactic for losing common people, and it works. Yay, you!
Again. So it's worth talking about the opening's problems because they're a microcosm of Fallout 3 as a whole. The dad making all the real decisions who you're just following around, and the throwaway characters you won't have any interest in seeing again, all prime you expertly for the shitty game to come. So if you can call...
Okay, the characters are priming everyone, but you're priming the audience with a very warped perspective at 15 minutes and 45. So almost a half hour you've been harping. Not quite as bad as Father Eli or Elijah or Father E as I've been taken, but you were the first. So people decided to beat you in length.
3's opening anything? One word you could call it is honest. Another word would be shite arse.
So mature. I think I commented on this earlier, and you never substantiated it. So let's move on. Let me try this. Probably won't be much better, but it's worth a good going. Sorry, having trouble with this mouse here. It's not like anything is truly beautiful here.
And even so, some people still refuse to believe there's anything wrong with Bethesda or their game design. But I suppose I'm getting a little off topic here, and Bethesda's descent into making increasingly terrible games is something that will be covered further through other analysis series I have planned. But that's in the distant...
You're not even gonna make that argument now. You're like, let me condemn a foregone conclusion that I will establish later. Maybe. Nice. Yes, you should get on with it. I feel it's best start beginning. Naturally,
That is
open
naturally
cut.
the opening cutscene that all mainline Fallout games have.
Yes.
In all honesty, this intro is fairly well handled for the most part, even if it doesn't add anything to what was established in the 2 previous games. The intro to Fallout 1 established the destructiveness and impact of war, and how it never changes. It describes the events that led to the war that destroyed civilization, and it explains that great vaults were built, which saved some people from the destruction.
And turned others into horrible mutants and left them out in the cold, cold nuclear winter, which I guess didn't happen. I don't see any sign of weather change. Maybe climate change is a myth. Maybe that's what the whole thing is. Or maybe a nuclear war will actually solve the climate change process. I have no clue. Okay.
With Fallout 2's intro, it begins by reintroducing the fact that a lack of resource led to war, but describes a much more detailed and harrowing picture of how civilization was wiped out. Fallout 3's intro basically describes that war has always been a part of our species and culture, and there's always some kind of justification for it to those who wage wars. Then it goes on to reiterate how the world was destroyed by nuclear fire, same as the previous 2 games. And it really makes sense to explain this aspect for anyone who may be new to the series, which was a particularly fan base that would follow them into this game. The intro continues to explain the concept of vaults, and this is where things start to take a turn for the worse.
Oh, the worst. Let's see. Intro. Here. Entry.
An intro to Fallout 3 largely does the same, but makes a bit of a fatal flaw right at the end. After being a neutral voice up until this point, the narrator suddenly and blatantly lies to us.
They lie to us. How dare they? They lie to us about Vault 101 stating outright the Vault 101 was never opened. And no one ever enters or ever leaves. Now, there's obviously story reasons. Okay, I can leave that behind. But he wants to say the neutral narrator turned it into a liar for no good reason. Oh, this is just freaking priceless. Could have been said by a character at any point during the overly long necessary sequence, yada yada yada. Him harping on this point, it's such a petty point that no one ever criticizes, and he really just lie. I think he's trying to establish sort of the meta narrative that I don't know, but definitely H Bomber guy sort of harped on it also. The liar, Bethesda fire lied here, so why wouldn't they lie anywhere else? You see that framing? Saying they're just lying about everything. Bethesda realistically, okay. Let's listen.
Realistically, Bethesda probably won't turn the narrator lying into a regular thing, and yet, while I type these words into the script for the video, I can't help but imagine this line aging poorly. But the problem here is the
Isn't that just such a foreboding line? It's so ominous. I mean, like, they probably won't do it again, but I have fear that it will work. Title... And here he goes on about the title crawl, blatantly lie. I don't think this is padding. I think he's just looking for every point to nail down, sort of Mueller style. And unreliable narrator. Do I see that anywhere in here? It's a common trope. Okay,
For Fallout, changing this aspect is especially bad since the payout on this aspect is barely touched upon.
Okay. Especially bad. I'm trying to understand this. I'm reading it for Fallout, changing this aspect is especially bad since the code on this aspect is that's a wrong error.
For Fallout, changing this aspect is especially bad since the payout on this aspect is barely touched upon, and you can reach within 5 minutes of leaving the vault.
This aspect
it's not even really treated as a big...
Okay, the payout for this aspect is barely touched upon. See, I don't know what he means by that. He's just making a claim without really expanding on it.
For Fallout, changing this aspect is especially bad since the payout on this aspect is barely touched upon, and you can reach within 5 minutes of leaving the vault.
Okay, he's not really that clear. For Fallout, changing this aspect is barely bad since the payout on this aspect is barely touched upon, and you can reach within 5 minutes of leaving the vault. Am I hearing this right? I am especially confused by this. He really needs to work on his script, and so do I, for that matter. But hearing him talk and even reading it, I don't understand what he's trying to say. The payout, I understand he's saying the payout is bad. Yes, payout is bad, but I don't know why it's bad, but he continues to go on.
For Fallout, changing this aspect is especially bad since the payout on this aspect is barely touched upon, and you can reach within 5 minutes of leaving the vault. It's not even really treated as a big revel aspect is barely touched upon, and you can reach within 5 minutes of leaving the vault. It's not even really treated as a big revelation, you're just kind of told about it. Why take such a bold step to deceive the audience if the ultimate impact of this fact is the equivalent of a cliff note on the overall story?
Okay. He doesn't think it's... That's extremely unclear right in there. And it's not helped with this. This is extremely unclear. Okay, I'm trying to figure out what he's saying. Basically, he's saying that why have the narrator liar break away from the blah, 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 blah when it's not worth it? You don't think the payout of the lie is worth it in the end? That's really a subjective view. Some people will... Do you really find out about James not ultimately being in the vault? Is it really that offensive to most people? I don't think it really... Okay, why ruin the neutral narrator for something that's revealed a few minutes later after leaving the vault? Well, why do parents lie to their children about Santa Claus? Okay, you're just being born. The narrator didn't want to spoil the surprise for you. Just like your parents don't want to tell you Santa Claus or the Easter Bunny. They really do treat you like a child in this beginning. Some people will find it irritating. Other people will find it, oddly world-building. Like you're actually living through this life. And even the neutral narrator... I can't even say he lies directly. It depends on what sort of stance he has. I would actually have to go through all his little lines, and it's such a small point to really get annoyed about. Okay, this also undermines the impact when leaving the vault when it's thought to be impossible. They never say it's impossible. They just say it's never happened. Let's go back to hear what he actually said. I don't think... Okay.
An unnecessary introduction sequence. But for whatever reason, they decided to have the narrator say it and turn him from a neutral voice that explains what happens into an unreliable...
And also another problem. A neutral voice. Whoever said the narrator's a neutral voice? Whoever made this claim that the narrator's a neutral voice? Okay, I'm just lost. This is just... It's good sound logic, but when you really think about it... Whoever called the narrator omnipotent voice? He's just doing this to really sort of... Let's see... Okay. Explains what happens into a reliable narrator. I think this is really to hammer home a certain narrative. We have one. Okay. Doesn't do it? Okay. Fatal flaw. This is where he gets into a lies. Could have easily handled. Include destruction. Turn him into a liar too. More criticism. Turn him from unreliable narrator. Okay, he seems to get the point. Okay, deceive, I'll count that. 2 more lies. He lies, so he wouldn't have to lie anywhere else. That's 6. Okay, I'm not going to count inconsistency. 7. Star Wars never lied to us. Except for number 7, where Skywalker, that was that number 7? Yeah, number 7 was a red herring of sorts. That had nothing to do with the real threat. Luke Skywalker was just a footnote at the end of the movie. So that's actually sort of a lie. He's telling a lie. Blatantly, okay, outright blatantly lie. Well, it is true Luke Skywalker was missing, or whatever they said. Basic understanding, plot, deceive, 8. Deceive, 9. Undermine, something. Okay, I think he's dropped them. Okay, 9 times. I think this is the beginning. That's 9 times. Liars either outright said it. Okay.
Blatantly lies to us.
Is 9:35. Okay, how long does he harp this at home for? How many seconds or minutes? Might not really seem important. But this is research. See, none of this is really established. Okay. Okay, let's just assume it's here. Okay, I think
Except to deceive the audience.
Okay, so definitely over a minute, like a minute and 15 seconds. He sort of sets up this narrative. A lot of time just to set up the lion narrative. I might be wrong. Door design.
That's his reason for leaving, but does take away from the impact of leaving. It also raises a big question of why the vault is even able to be opened, as it was part of Vault Tech's experiment to see what would happen to people locked underground long term. They could have designed the door to intentionally close and be impossible to reopen.
Yes, but they didn't. Maybe part of their design is to see how long that just forcing them sort of have a strong incentive for them not to open it. See, he keeps... see, he never actually lies. He just sort of creates scenarios where it seems like the story's bad because of theoretical things supported by the story. It's just really... it's some nice trickery that's really hard to deal with. Okay, similar to how the door was flawed, so it never is to close. they could have fixed that. Okay, they really could have fixed that, and maybe the door was intentionally closed from the start, and over time the overseer wanted the option of leaving, so he had some technicians make it capable. Or maybe they didn't. Why am I wasting my time at this point? This is a pointless point. He backs it up with a comparison to another Fallout game so he can bring that in. All good and well. Surface. This is actually... Bethesda has an issue growing only experts. The fact seems... You have not established that. You're asserting that... You're hinting that Vault Tech could have made it impossible to reopen, which is actually impossible. They could have made it very hard to reopen, near impossible, but it's not established they did. So why are you bringing it up? So you can say that you can do this comparison. Then you can claim that Bethesda understands the surface levels details of Fallout without what, depth, or complexity. Really, I'm trying to see. See, it's not substantiating anything that Bethesda is not understanding. What is Bethesda not understanding that you can make this statement? I keep thinking I'm being left out of the loop, like there's some information out there outside of this video that he's making these claims from, or assume that everyone watching his videos have a negative perception of this, so they'll see any vague statement insinuating that he's talking. He makes a vague statement, a hypothetical statement that they could have. And since it could be open, that is a way to criticize Bethesda understanding the surface, because he did that comparison. But they could be the keyword design the door to intentionally close and be impossible to reopen. Then James would have never gotten in, and this whole story wouldn't have happened, not even the start. So this is rather moot point. Okay, I'm not even gonna bother putting in his comment section. He's been an ass every time I've commented something. Maybe I shouldn't give him a hard time if he's having a hard time, but he's definitely been an ass every time I commented something, which surprised me. I guess I actually had decent criticism. He just didn't want to admit it. So he only pushes back on legitimacy or people who don't harass him completely, like the one douchebag. That really was sad. Sad as hell. Definitely has a hate mob coming after him, so I shouldn't be too hard on him. Oh, fuck that. If he does shitty stuff, I can call him out for it. Will I? Well, definitely this live stream. Definitely not a fully form. Let me just listen to him for a bit. Style over substance. Don't want to hear too much. Okay.
After the intro, we're treated to whatever the fuck this is. Yeah, this is a weird one. It's certainly memorable for the fact that it's the only game I've ever seen that starts with your...
Ew, birth. Yeah, it's the only game you ever seen that started with a literal birth. It's a really cool concept. I don't know why people are criticizing it. It's not necessarily great, but okay. So this is the first game, the only game that you've seen to actually try this. That actually sounds pretty damn cool in my opinion. But this is the start of something terrible, something you have not established. You are not a neutral narrator. You are extremely negatively leading critic of this game. So this analysis is completely covered in freaking negativity from the start. The framing is just truly terrible. itself, what the writers were going for, that begins with your birth and ends with your death. Yep, everyone admits its final paper, even on a different game and series. Well, they've never actually had the birth. It's come saddled with huge issues that basically destroy your ability to decide who your character is. Establishment, I've talked about this. See, this is what annoys me. He's saying he talked about it somewhere else before. He's always pulling this sort of Mott and Bailey bullshit. And it's freaking annoying that he does it when I go in the comments. He always deflects. I made a slightly different error the first time I commented in this video. And he called me on it. I'm like, I re-listened to the part. I'm like, yeah, you're right. You did say that. It's extremely weird wording. It wasn't very clear. That's why I missed it. He's like, it's perfectly clear. What the hell? Okay, eventually. I'll be talking about it again. It's worth discussion here. There's an issue in this game. Character sequence goes so far to explain every... It doesn't, okay? It does not go that far. You have large chunks of your life. You have one scene as a baby, one birthday, then you have the go to Zam, then you have the time of your escape. Yeah, only real choice. Whether you're good, neutral, everything's totally artificial. Game starts with your birth.
The game starts with your birth, and the first character you see is your father, and within a few short seconds you learn that your mother has died. Through the rest of the tutorial sequence, you see your character take their first baby steps, you see your 10th birthday and learn that you get your first job the following day. You learn who your best friend is, you learn who your bullies are, you learn who your dad's friends are, you get a lifetime job assigned to you, and you...
Oh, he really is doing a great job of making this sound boring as all hell. He's just detailing what you're learning in your childhood. Change now.
None of these aspects can be changed in any way. Even if you decide to treat your friend like shit and try to side with the bullies, what little option there is to do so, the game gives absolutely...
Yeah, how did you end up making it up to her later? You can imagine that. You side with the bullies and later on your friends. You can imagine. Did you con her? Did you sweet talk her? Did you say you were scared and thought that was your best way to get out of a confrontation? There's plenty of wiggle room there. He's saying you can't imagine anything. That's a goddamn lie. There's large chunks taken out. He just wants to be hyperbolic to sort of create a narrative that too much is given to you. Yes, you have the bully. You don't have really bullies. There's Butch, and that's it. Butch and his gang. So, if we want to be nitpicky, you learn who your bullies are. No, you learn who your main bully is. Yep, side with bullies. That's correct there. Because there's multiple ones in that. They have names, but Butch is the representative. 0A. This game series all. It's who you are. Why? Okay. Call back. Declinism. They still had more freedom than this. New Vegas handled it best. Only let's listen.
They still allowed more freedom than this. New Vegas handled this...
Okay. It was different. Now you're saying, oh, Bethesda fucked it up, but New Vegas handled it better. No. They just copy printed the method. What the... In reality, Obsidian just really did the same thing. It's not hard to just copy the same thing. I'm not even going to say that's what New Vegas is, but that is a... But the critics of Fallout 3 and Fallout 4, the Bethesda haters, will tend to be like, well, New Vegas did it correctly. New Vegas didn't have to do anything new. They were in the same location. They did farming before, so they did farming again. Okay, they had you come out with no backstory before, they do it again. It's not very innovative. Hate the growing up in the vault as much as you want. It was something different. I don't think... Actually, I know it was not that bad. It might have been hard for some people who came into the game expecting freedom, and people who backtrack from New Vegas to this and be like, this is bullshit. They just let me get shot and raised. I picked my stats and I was out the door. Definitely the beginning of Fallout 3 is not for the impatient. And they say people's attention span is really going nowadays. I believe that, but can't say I'm much better.
Best, as the only aspect set in stone about your character is the fact they were working as a courier when they got shot in the head by Benny. All other history and personality are entirely free for the player.
Yes, but this is neither a good thing nor a bad thing. You're saying it's not in line with Bethesda's legacy. Fallout's legacy, but things evolve. Things change. In a vacuum, the only thing they can say about the opening is it was overly long and boring. There's other things you can say, like the Overseer's sudden decision to kill you, and he not necessarily would have done that. Just his guards were a little bit, how people envision guards now, police officers now to black people. That's sort of the way I see it, or the best way to frame it. Police brutality and all.
To decide. The baffling part about this is that Bethesda routinely gives a player a blank slate character in their Elder Scrolls games all the time. The only detail about your character in the Elder Scrolls games, besides maybe being a prophesized chosen one, is the fact you start off as a prisoner. No other details about who you are exist.
Yes, they wanted to change things up for one freaking time, and the freaking fans sort of raged over it. Taught them their lesson, Don't do what the fans, don't try anything new. Just make things better story writing. You can't change anything now. We expect a certain thing from our series, so you gotta keep that formula. Bold innovation. Innovation? Yeah, I'm saying that wrong, but fuck it. Who cares? Not me.
So it's strange they forgo that here for no good reason. It's also really weird.
There is no reason that they should. They got a new property. They got excited. They wanted to try to do a really cool opening. Why can't people understand this? What do you think they did this because they wanted to sort of torture people? Because they wanted to mark this, piss it as their own property? No. You even said yourself, it's fine. It's a cool concept on paper. You just don't think it was executed well. I don't think you're really... I think saying it was a cool concept on paper is like actually praise for the beginning, because you're so negative at every point you can that you freaking spend over a minute establishing the dishonesty of a very minor point.
For them to try and write a character for you, yet still treat you as though you're a total blank slate.
They don't write a character for you. They write where you're stuck, who your father is. There's certain elements they write for you that you can play off of, and they're generally a little bit bland. It might be a half measure that doesn't serve anyone who wants the full experience, vibrant life, but
like in their other games. I'd honestly have less issue with this if they had committed fully to writing a character for you that you play as. The way it's handled...
This seems very contrary. You would probably scream that you wouldn't have a chance to create your character at all, and there's plenty of games that do it. I think this is a disingenuous line of thinking. It's very binary. You can't have a middle ground. Hell, neutral is one of the best perks you can get, but that's as long as you don't go down a completely light path or a completely dark path.
Handled here is basically throwing a backstory onto a blank slate character and largely acting as though that backstory doesn't exist. If there's such an emphasis on the player character's backstory, it should have been better developed. It should be an integral part of who they are, and it should help inform their decisions later on.
Okay, so appeal to historical tradition of Bethesda and pretty much the Fallout interplay, but then he makes the inverse argument saying that they could have, since they didn't give it all the freedom you could have, they should have taken all the freedom. Since they gave you so little, they should have taken it all, and that makes no sense for me. Yes, I know the half and half method is under criticism, but that is subjective, and this is extremely... I'm thinking this might be a point I'll have to discuss when I get to his video. He plays the binary back and forth and doesn't consider the fluidity of the middle ground.
Either commit fully or don't do it at all, because this half-assed in between.
I wonder if this guy is like liberal or Republican. Because frankly, this is sort of like the centrist. Maybe this is why I don't have a problem with this. Most people are binary. Like all the freaking liberal, all the freaking Democrat, liberal types. I am technically a liberal, but I'm more centrist in nature, more open-minded. Willing to see the points on one side or the other one, but more liberal-minded. This is a little bit all the way or nothing. You're either with us or against them. Sort of depicts a lot of the freaking situation that I hear is between the Obsidian Fallout fans, or I'd say Obsidian interplay, since that's technically more honest, and the Bethesda Fallout fans. Both fans on both sides can get fucked as far as I'm concerned. Both games were good. I've said this before. I have a friend who says Fallout 3 is better, and I say Fallout New Vegas is better. We've had our discussions on it. He can't be swayed. He doesn't even give good, legitimate reasons. He's just stuck in that headspace. And I do like the freedom because I'm probably more liberally minded, and I like the freedom. But the beginning of Fallout 3 is still something really cool that I haven't seen any video game try ever, and I haven't seen since. I don't think more games should do it, but it's definitely awesome that Fallout 3 did this, and for it to be criticized for taking a risk and trying something cool, it's sort of saddening to me. People are always going to be scared of different things. Sort of sad.
Between is not a best of both worlds situation. I am jumping.
No, it's letting you pick between the two different worlds. You can create your own headcanon with the spaces in there. You can ignore it, or you can really get into it and let sort of try the different choices and let that help you figure out as you're sort of growing up in the vault who you're going to become. You get your chance to get out of the vault. You can be born again. A born again fallen knight. I was a goody two-shoe in the vault, but I decided to be a bad boy once I got out because my daddy wasn't looking over my shoulder. Oh, you're disappointed with me, daddy. Well, I'm disappointed in you. You caused all this shit. Blah, blah, blah. Fun, fun, fun. Role-playing.
Getting ahead of myself a bit here, but I felt this was something that should be discussed early on. The character's birth sequence is followed up 1 year later as they take their first baby steps, which again seems like a really strange choice. I suppose there's nothing wrong with it, but I feel like what you...
Hey, what's with this framing? There's nothing wrong with it, but it's strange. That boy there is queer. I said we beat the straight into him. That's how I feel about that. You know, it's strange. Wouldn't surprise me, but I should learn my lesson about saying that. People saying things like strange, odd, weird. I mean, you can say you don't understand it. I think that's the best thing. But do you understand why people could like it? That's a better question.
You do in this segment could have been done elsewhere, and in such a way that would provide better development for the characters within the vault, especially for your character's father, who we're supposed to care about, as the entire main story is about him and what he wants. This ironically foreshadows how infantile Bethesda will treat their audience in the decade following this game's release.
Okay, back to declinism. Basically, Creed here probably liked the game at first, but as subsequent series came out, he saw sort of things getting worse and worse, so he started looking back and seeing all the worst aspects and what he used to like from Bethesda, and sort of projected his growing distaste with how the Fallout franchise was going and projected that backwards, and started nitpicking at the older stuff and finding problems where most people wouldn't necessarily find problems or think about them. They are only problems when you think too deeply and you nitpick this older game with, frankly, a lot of limitations for what Bethesda was trying to do. You can call them lazy, but they're trying to establish a new precedent, at least within their company. And they could have been flawed in making this engine, which had certain limitations. I hear other people saying certain other things that other companies did with their engines was much harder to do on Fallout engines, but I'm not really going to get into the technical side of things. I accept limitations when they're there.
In the previous games, when you started, you were given a simple screen allowing you to choose all available statistics.
Citing the past is not a criticism. You just want to relive the other games, so play them. That's fine. If Fallout 3 did so bad, don't play it. Okay? Or you criticize the decisions Fallout 3 did make, and you criticize what they did without having to rely on the past as your sort of backup thing. Okay, it's just simple. It makes, when you're doing comparisons constantly to other things, even if it is in the same franchise, there are certain aspects you can do with the writing and storylines, which I will accept, but keeping some sequences and not changing things is sort of just, not evolving as an entity. You want to evolve. You just don't want to evolve into anything bad. I think you can literally critique something without referring to anything else as your comparison. In fact, that's a preferable way. At least establish why it's bad on its own merits and compare it to something you think is similar that did it better.
Skill information about your character, tag skills.
After the fact, after you establish why this doesn't work, why they should do this. So he's not establishing why this isn't working. He's just saying beforehand that the tag skills, I'm going to have to bring up the
traits, male or female.
Okay, because I missed this, probably because I was talking over him the first time partially. Okay, even moral wins, straightforward. For some reason,
straightforward. For some reason in Fallout 3, they decided to stretch the character generation out as far as possible, with each aspect given its own segment, though some have been removed as well.
Each aspect. I don't think as a translator, just his writing isn't the greatest. No wonder he was so freaking defensive when I said he could have been more clear. Decide to stretch the character they decided to stretch the character generation out as far as possible, with each aspect given its own segment So some aspects have been removed as well. I mean, it's fine to go with simplifying. Definitely sounds good sometimes.
During the birth
Let's go
sequence,
over it.
they decided to stretch the character generation out as far as possible, with each aspect given its own segment, though some have been removed as well. During the birth sequence, you pick your name and character appearance. In the baby
Okay, what has been removed as well? Is this the... Okay, I don't know what has been removed as well. The aspect? I'm guessing he's talking about the tag skills. Did he bring that up earlier? It's just been so long. Or is he going to bring it up later? Oh yeah, not worth worrying about. Yeah, okay. Yeah. Each aspect given its own segment. See, without knowing the context, this would be hard to understand. Unless he brought it up. Unless he's talking about the previous games you started with this. Oh, okay, yeah. Sorry, short attention span. Information about your character. Yeah. Definitely hard to keep track of the way he writes this, or the way it's written down. Okay.
you pick your tag skills. Traits have been removed for no discernible reason, and it's part of a trend on Bethesda's part of removing RPG mechanics.
Okay. He says he's applying that traits are RPG mechanics. I don't see how they're RPG mechanics. I guess in a way they are. They're a way to make your character more unique and less homogenized. They'll give you an extra dimension. Trend of removing RPG role-playing game mechanics. I can accept it, even they existed in previous entries, even though they didn't have a hand. I don't even know.
Even though they didn't have a hand in previous Fallout games. After allocating your special points, your father returns and literally explains the entire point of the story to you. Water is important to life existing. This point ends up actually being hilariously ironic due to the sheer incompetence of the world design, but that's an issue I'll cover later on when it's more relevant.
See, so much kicking of the can and sort of citing something you said outside the given media. This is some really disingenuous. I mean, you have to treat every video like the person hasn't seen a video of yours before, unless, because people have no clue and they'll forget by the time you get back to it. You're basing a criticism off the future. It's like saying shit. It's like saying oh well, let me not use that comparison. It's like saying World War III. Like, this event could cause World War III, because I know the future. So this event will cause World War III or global warming. We need to do something now. It could be correct, but we don't know. Kicking the can. Yeah, he's kicking the can down the road with this.
This segment transitions to your 10th birthday, where very little of any significance happens.
No, nothing happens.
Your friend Amada gives you a skill book as a present, which gives you a skill point in melee combat. And already I'm going to tie this back to character generation being tied to a...
See, this is what I misunderstood. Already I'm going to tie this back to character generation. I think I restated that to a single screen, like... See, the problem with that is tie it back to character generation. Technically, stats are not character generation. You insinuate it back there that all the character building elements would be a better character generation. Yeah, you could interpret it as all your stats, traits, tag skills, yada yada yada. You don't even know about skills at this point.
Complete with accompanying dialogue. It'd have to be based randomly on which of your 3 tag skills it gives a book based on, but would be a nice way early on to acknowledge your character build in some way. For example...
Yes, nice. Okay, how long does he go on this hypothetical? Okay, game skill. Maybe they're trying to encourage you to use that skill from the start. Don't know. Completely relevant. This guy is definitely a mid-maxer, I think. Definitely would be a mid-maxer in roleplay and want to create the most efficient build. It also teaches you books can give you abilities. I mean, he's absolutely right. It would be a nice little thing, but it is, if it ain't broken, don't fix it. You need to establish why it's broken before you try to fix it. And you don't even know if trying to add that little feature wouldn't actually cause it worse things to happen. Obviously, Bethesda had a way they wanted to do it, and so this is not a criticism. Okay, here.
Which helps set the tone for what life is like in Vault 101 and the personality of the Overseer. He's a no-nonsense and strict leader. Even at a child's birthday party, he can't turn off his official business mode.
Okay, keep that in mind for later. I don't know if he makes this criticism later, but I'm thinking he will.
And only drops the professional act when talking to his daughter. After this, you're given a sweet roll, which Butch tries to immediately steal. You can provoke him into attacking you, which immediately causes a security guard to run to your defense. Or you can solve it peacefully, which requires no skill checks of any kind. It's
he sounds rather abhorrent about this. People don't know about their skills yet. They don't know what that does. Yeah, it's just literally a dialogue option. Now, a tutorial section, see, that is not necessarily true. Tutorial sections generally lock abilities and teach them one skill at a time, and they test your abilities to do it before they test your next skill. So I think this is unfair to say that this tutorial section should give the player a taste of what the guest... See, this is such a faulty argument. The tutorial section is meant to teach you the skills. Do they do it effectively? Do they work it in naturally? I think this tutorial section actually works it rather naturally and with the setting. This is actually a rather seamless way of teaching someone different options if they're new to this game. But to equate this to the freaking...
And this ends up representing the full-on game fairly well.
See, he makes an assumption. He doesn't think it's good. He made an argument for why you should just have all these abilities. Ugh, I would really need to sit down and think out the logic and able to actually make a video detangling the freaking rhetorical game that is being played here. It's quite... if he spoke more clearly, actually, maybe the looseness of his words helps him out and dodging how slippery his language is.
The game, it's already showing us how limited character interaction will be in most scenarios for the rest of the game.
See, they keep trying to establish that the tutorial section is a reflection upon the rest of the game without any real true merit. Okay? It really seems rather ridiculous overall.
Now there are speech checks, but most dialogue options will be rather limited and often meaningless. For example, with
limited and meaningless. Sorry, shocked and amazed. I thought this was supposed to be an RPG where every word counts. Maybe your dialogue options won't have a significant change, but for you, the player, decide how your character would go. Maybe it's not enough meaningless nonsense within the dialogue options. They should give you more meaningless options, even when the outcome is apparent. Like he wants to beat you up no matter what. You might be able to get away with not getting beat up. It's rather hard.
Butch here, you have a few options. Some of them result in him giving up. Some of them result in him attacking you. And you even have an option to give him the sweet roll. What is the point of adding extra options if they're just going to lead to the same outcome? Wouldn't it have been better to give the player more options that lead to more outcomes? Especially if you take skills into consideration.
Yeah, this is why he set up the single. Maybe it's not appeal tradition. It's just basically a way to say, oh, if they did this, they could have had so many more options, but it's a freaking tutorial session. You're a freaking child. You're still learning. I never actually sort of brushed off the claim that the game treats you like a baby or child in the beginning of the game, because it does. That's the point of it, in my personal opinion. And I think even the critics believe it's the point of it. I think it's fairly well substantiated. Yes, the beginning of the game does treat you like a baby. How the player responds to being treated like a baby, it depends on if they want to role play or sort of experience the vault life as a child, where being treated like a baby, even though you're an adult, it's sort of something that can set an extremely role play like mood. I see what the critics see as bad, them treating you as a child, I see as a positive. So it's funny how different people can see the same element as either bad or good. Definitely this beginning section, I definitely believe it's subjective. I'll give them their subjective. This is why also when they're clearly making the case at the point they treat you like a child, I find that is a good thing. They treat it as a bad thing, but I care about story and building up the narrative. They care about gameplay and having freedom. So it's very subjective, and so I guess the whole game is subjective. So subjectively, you can't say objectively the game's bad if you want to compare the beginning to the game. You can't find any objectively bad things about the rest of the game, since the rest of the game is a microcosm or whatever of the beginning, because the beginning is subjective. You're not finding any serious criticism at the beginning except for what you're inserting in it of how it could be better, how they could have done it like Fallout 1 and insert new things into it. But this is why I have such trouble trying to deal with this beginning. It is
similar.
It's impossible to actually defend on an objective level. If they say that you can defend it, if you can criticize it on an objective level, I call bullshit on that. Because you just need one person to say, I like that beginning. This is this, and this. They treat you like a child. You were a child in the game. It's a role-playing aspect. Might have not given you the freedom to create a complete... It might have not given you the ability to create whatever type of character, but it definitely lets you create a lot of things out of this. and it does it in an interesting way.
To Amada's gift, you can end up using a skill in dialogue to change how a situation plays out. Maybe if unarmed combat is a tagged skill, you have the option to threaten Butch instead, in which he realizes he's outmatched. After that, you're sent off to meet Liam Neeson's friend Jonas at the Vault Reactor, and Liam gives you a BB gun. You shoot some targets to kill a rad roach. Jonas takes a picture of you and dear old dad, and the game transitions into the next segment of this introductory sequence, the GOAT test. As mentioned previously, regardless of how you treated Amada and Butch at the birthday party, nothing about them will change in any way by the time you reach this segment. Butch is still a bully who hates you, Amada is still your friend. You do have the choice here to side with the bullies and help them bully her, or you could talk Butch down, or even beat the shit out of him. But again, this choice is entirely meaningless as the game fails to provide any significant feedback.
Yeah, I know what he's talking about. They won't actually... It's a counter that happens once over. Everyone promptly forgets it even happens. Amada will be mad if... Amada will be mad if you help the bullies. So you have to put a little bit of that imagination into this. So you don't like limited imagination, limited scripted stuff. Cool. I understand. I understand everyone who feels that way, this half and half measure, but I also can understand why people would like this. Go game, segment over the entire world, pretend the entire becomes a common theme. Creed definitely doesn't like to be told he's done with tests. He's out of school. School's out for summer, or maybe he's a college boy. Who the hell knows? I don't know much about this man besides really his impressively deceptive tactics. Kicking the can down the road. Trying to fix what isn't broken. Trying to take a very subjective section of the game. Illusions are a choice best. Let's hear the words from the own GOAT's mouth.
Most choices you have during the tutorial segment of this game are illusions of choice at best.
Like his choice of words, illusions of choice at best. No, it's there to sort of show you what the choices will result in. They're not illusions. Really real things happen. He really wants Amada to be mad at you after this, but strictly speaking, that's the end of the segment.
The options are there, but all paths lead to the same destination. Speaking of destination, nothing else of importance happens at the GOAT exam. It's basically a bunch of dumb questions you answer in order to have your tag skills recommended. While many of the questions do have direct parallels to skills in game, it generally seems to be a bit unbalanced, and some answers don't make sense.
Ah, here we have again, him not understanding. I don't really care if you don't understand. It's a little silly element to help new players figure out different skills. If someone has no clue, they might just answer randomly. Really a non-criticism. Goes over it too long. Cats.
Seems with the T and leaving him to rot examples, Bethesda was aiming for more silly options over something that would make sense and clearly indicate to the player which skills are being represented.
Okay.
You can also talk the teacher into just letting you decide your tag skills for yourself. Finally, this leads to the final segment of the introductory sequence. Amada wakes you up and tells you that your father, Liam Neeson, has escaped the vault, and now the Overseer's henchmen are after you. Now, previously stated, followed as a game about choices.
No, there is no point where... See, they just make this assumption that Fallout is about choices, okay? There are choices in the game. There's quite significant choices. It's a core component of the previous two games, back to denialism now, should be here as well. But isn't the Overseer want to kill you? No talk them down. Same thing as H-Bomb. There's no surrendering them. No making a deal with them. Just kind of want to kill you. Your only options are to kill them or just run away. Okay. Let's see. Same point as
run away.
Probably.
A lot of people hate the intro to Fallout 2, but I do like the message it has, that eventually you're going to have to fight someone who can't be reasoned with or talked down. And it's a bit funny that the first true combat encounters of Fallout 3 completely disallow the ability to talk to any of the guards, despite the fact these are people your character grew up with.
Yes, and you're still the outsider child who ran away so you could be conspiring. They don't know anything about why he probably caused a little bit of havoc to make his escape. That's my assumption for why the rad roaches got in, is he had to create a distraction to slip out unknowingly. And there's definitely a sentiment that you're the odd ones out. I mean, it's not a point. I mean, Creed here is extremely detailed when it helps his points, and I understand that completely, but he sort of doesn't give context to why the overseer and even the men, except for the one guard, sort of would be fine with killing you. He's actually setting up a false narrative. He's assuming something that's not actually in the game. I mean, it's an understandable conclusion to come up with, but they also are a little prejudicial against your father in this game. And, of course, different ones will have different level of distrust for. Definitely if they established the guard who ends up confronting you.
Once again, the tutorial segment should be a preview of what the game proper has to offer.
And who says this? I hate how they freaking just slip this in with no real establishing where a comparison would actually be nice. No, I'm at a loss of what tutorial section teaches you what the game will be like, especially one that tries to be as complex as Fallout 3 in this time period. They're just slipping this assumption that the tutorial section should be teaching you what the game's like. No, the tutorial section is supposed to teach you the mechanics you can play with, and Bethesda just decided to try to integrate them naturally within the Vault setting. This is why you're picking your special skills that fit in perfectly with the baby book, theme-wise at least. Your tag skills as you get older, what do you want to do for a career, is sort of your tag skills. Makes perfect logical sense. And it's naturally inserted in this, but they don't see it because they want freedom.
And despite being fairly bad, it's rather accurate to what the overall experience will be like.
Yes, you won't have complete freedom in every moment in your life. That is true. Mostly if you're out and about and don't get captured, you have freedom. If you get locked up in a jail, which definitely would have added to this. If you were bad enough, really wish they would have, like with Skyrim, you can get locked up in Skyrim, which was sort of nice. And that's something I would have liked to see into this, but it also would have been bad because, as someone pointed out, George Lucas doesn't have a jail cell. They typically just kill you, so if you do something bad and they attack you, you have to pretty much run or attack back. I think this tutorial section is correct. If you do something bad, even if you didn't mean to, or someone perceives you as doing something bad, there are points in the game where if you do certain things, bounty hunters come after you. Like if you're evil, I think even if you like turn down 10 pennies offer, I think he'll hire a few goons, which you might run into, hunting you down, especially if you defuse the bomb.
For some unknown reason, the entire vault is in complete disarray simply because Liam Neeson decided to fuck off out of there. There's a bunch of rad roaches, there's dead civilians. Areas of the vault look like they've been raided. It seems a bit excessive considering what has happened. Hell, we even find out later that some fire started somehow.
Love that. Put together the contextual clues yourself. Obviously, Liam Nielsen, or other words, his name James, the player character's father, James, obviously had to create a distraction of some type so he could slip out. Makes perfect sense to me why the thing would be in disarray. Could be wrong. They could have caught him trying to sneak out and say you can't do that, but I assume he created a distraction. There's nothing to support that, but there's nothing to discount it, so this criticism has no point being here. He just wants to say, oh, again, he wants to say this is weird because it happens off screen. I think it's perfectly fine to have some things happen off screen if they don't actually matter. And in this case, I don't think it matters. I would like him to make an argument of why you would need to know why the rad roaches are in.
Which ended up killing some people. It's never explained how or why, and it's never shown in game. Most of the older gen.
Yeah, maybe if you stayed in the vault somehow, because stay in the vault, you could find it out. It probably is something that could have been done to relieve this criticism, but when they were doing this game, they weren't making it bulletproof. They wanted to make a fucking video game. So, moving on.
Generation of Vault 101 would know the vault has opened before. That's how Liam Neeson and the player character got into the vault. But, for whatever reason, the vault was sealed again, and they decided to tell all the children this lie, that the vault has and never will open. So naturally, when it does open for Liam Neeson to leave, this is a bit of a shock to the younger characters, but it doesn't explain the level of chaos we see. The birthday party established that rad roaches can get into the vault, but it seemed like a rare thing. Yet during escape there's about a dozen of them, coincidentally at the same time that Liam...
Didn't he just say there was somehow a fire and people died? Okay, I'm assuming something happened. I don't know what it is. I don't need to know. There's a fire, so obviously some damage was done. Bad father if he caused it. Bad overseer if he caused it trying to stop James from leaving and trying to kill him, and that started the fire. You could always say it's part of the role playing that you can make up the reason why, but is a lazy reason. If it's as long as it's not illogically if it just couldn't happen at all, or very unlikely, which I don't see it as unlikely. It seems likely something would have happened. Either James needed a distraction, or something happened while James was leaving that was unexpected, like someone trying to stop him caused an accident. That's also understandable. But it doesn't affect the story, does it? This is actually probably his criticism of it, because he wants his actions to matter, so he wants his father's actions to matter.
Due to Liam leaving, the Overseer more or less used the guards as a totalitarian police force to brutally and violently enforce his rule, to the point of seemingly causing all this chaos.
He's really framing everything in such a negative light. That's an extremely tough way to sort of see the Overseer's actions. Definitely is very strict. It's definitely a very overreaction, but the words he using is important to setting a mood. Creed here he's either smart or just intentionally knows how to use words to the most effective level to set a certain framing. I would give him the benefit of the doubt, but that would actually make him more deceitful, but at least it's better than being, I guess, stupidly misleading.
They're outright murdering people. Everything is torn apart. It's a complete mess. Why couldn't the Overseer handle everything more rationally?
See, why couldn't he handle it more rationally? Is there anything to tell the player that he would handle it rationally? Because he's let's see his point.
It certainly would have saved lives. Basically,
You're assuming the Overseer want to save lives. Such a privileged viewpoint, maybe wants to get rid of people. This is a vault growing in population. They probably have not enough deaths for the sheltered environment, and less mouths to feed is probably a bonus unless it's someone useful for things in the vault.
He could have put the vault into lockdown and sort things out at his leisure. Why?
Okay, he could have put the vault in lockdown. Is there a feature that on the phone? I meant on the actual, his terminal, which you have to access to go. It would be better to bring up his computer screen and show us that the audience, that lockdown function. As far as I remember, there is no such thing. You can't set the vault on freaking lockdown mode. That terminal controls the vault. He goes to it, turns it on and off, probably restricts access to his room, his computer, take away the password and keys, not make that mistake again.
Allow the use of deadly force. Liam is gone. Nothing can be done about that. Question Jonas, arrest Liam's child and bring them in for questioning, and so forth. Also take into consideration that it's incredibly easy for the Overseer to restrict access to the vault door. I'm not sure how he couldn't just cover up the fact that Liam Leeson left, and handle things more discreetly. Instead, he basically does the worst thing possible, which results in at least 5 innocent deaths that we see, as well as more off-screen, and brings the entire vault to the point of civil war. Even if the Overseer is killed, the results of his actions result in Vault 101 descending into chaos for who knows how long before the player finally returns for trouble on the home front. Maybe the Overseer is an incompetent leader, but that's never really fully explored. Also, a small side note, it's
Okay, I'm getting tired. Overseer's actions has more lasting ramification. It's amazing that the Overseer's actions has more consequences than any choice the player has besides poisoning the water at the end of the game. Not true. Just in the main story, you have more choices. You can blow up Megaton, you can kill Harold and destroy pretty much Oasis, you can stop the war, or you can, actually I think you don't really have a choice. You can leave the two super people fighting that one town. You can change the election and get rid of Dave from his position, and he might get killed if you didn't kill the death claws in the local location. You can pretty much kill all the people of Tenpenny Tower by the ghouls, or you can blow up Megaton. I said that already. That doesn't change the world at all. I don't know what does. You can get rid of the slavers. I mean, yeah, none of those actions change the world one bit.
amusing that the Overseer's actions have more long-lasting ramifications and consequences than any choice the player has besides poisoning the water at the very end of the game. Though I am getting...
Got it. I'm sure if I went into the criticism and saying you said that it's amazing the Overseer actions have more lasting ramifications than the player besides poisoning the water at the end of the game. I'm like, that's not true. There's all these other things. I don't know which deflection he would give. He would either deflect with, I'm getting a bit ahead of myself, use that as the sort of deflection, or the Mod and Bailey. This is the Mod, this is the Bailey to go back on if anyone calls him out. Or he can simply say, I think this would be his Bailey. But of course he could always use that. Yeah, I keep falling out. I think pretty close to done, and I'm
getting a bit ahead of myself again here. During your escape, Butch asks you to save his mother. Your options are to save her, let her die, or give Butch your BB gun so he can go save her. The only outcome naturally being that she either dies or doesn't die. This doesn't even affect the... so it's basically another illusion of choice. The game goes out of its way to stop you and give you this mini quest, all for it to be completely irrelevant anyways.
It's not irrelevant. It's part of the tutorial section. There will be some NPCs who will try to chase you down and give you quests. That's the point of this. We've established this is the fucking tutorial section. Okay? Stop actually complaining about the illusion of choice here. Okay? Complain about the illusion of choice later on if you wish, but I'm wondering if the reason they harp so hard on the illusion of choice here is because you do have options later. Okay, haven't actually watched this video throughout. Whether she lives or dies doesn't change the fact. Yeah, changes life for Butch or for your own your own sense of what your character would be like. Are you willing to help someone who probably made your life a little less pleasant at your time in the vault, or can you be the bigger man and help him even though he's sort of a jackass? Or do you just really want his jacket? And you use meta information to know if you help him, he'll give you crap. Don't know. Oh. Does he talk about this?
Moving on, you see more of the chaos mentioned. Two randos decide to commit suicide by cop, and you eventually find Amada being interrogated by the Overseer.
Oh, he brings
If you
this
let her
up.
keep her gun, she'll defend herself from Officer Mack, and she will
Oh,
flee.
he does.
Otherwise, the Overseer will question her in an infinite loop, and Officer Mack will threaten her with being beaten, to which she screeches for them to stop, and the Overseer begins questioning her again. This is the one single point within the introduction, where you have a chance to make any kind of change upon the world, outside of some character models being loaded into a future scene or not, and that's whether...
Look at this framing. He really takes people out of the game, some character models. He's treating this like a simple game and not an actual thing that someone as a role player might actually consider to be significant. It's not necessarily, it's definitely not untrue, but it's definitely the framing definitely cheapens this. Okay, if you don't kill Overseer, insufferable expletive, you're required to kill in order to solve whichever way. Reach the vault door, cave, the guards will... Okay, far enough, close the door, one way out. Done. What have we learned, kids? Not a lot, really. Luckily, I had no viewers. This probably was boring as all hell, especially towards the end when I started to not care. Well, I think it's gone on longer than it probably should have. Anyone watching this in the future, this is the end.